Today, we have the most talented and wise Barry Selby. Sorry. Okay, let's do that again. Sorry, I was so worried about your name.
You were going great. It's going great.
You're so patient, Barry. Okay. Oh gosh, I get like the giggles. Okay. Welcome to the Keys to Modern Dating Online Summit. Today, we have with us the most talented, wise, and generous Barry Selby. He is a relationship expert, a best-selling author, inspirational speaker, podcaster. He has 2 podcasts out there, and spiritual guide. He's passionate. He's a passionate champion for the divine feminine, ladies, a masculine leader, and he leads with a compassionate heart. He is dedicated to helping strong, successful women and men attract a healthy relationship with their authentic and passionate partner. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So the first question that I would like you to answer us, if it's okay, is how you ended up being a relationship coach. This is so interesting.
Sure. Well, let's just be clear. I didn't follow a traditional path to becoming a coach. First of all, I'm not a coach per se. I didn't do a coaching program, but I have a background in spiritual psychology and also have a 20 plus years as a spiritual counselor. So that's part of my training. However, the reason I do what I do is because I kept making mistakes. My relationship history was hit and miss, to say the least. Successes, failures, that sort of thing. And frankly, I kept learning new things about myself and about life and about other things, and I still kept making mistakes. It wasn't until 2007 or thereabouts where I had the last big bad breakup, where she basically, in no uncertain terms, read me the riot act. She told me what was absolutely missing from our relationship, what I was messing up. And the truth is,
great.
It was absolutely the, how to say it? It was the lack of subtlety that gave me the clarity of what I was missing. Because the truth is, and this is one thing I teach in my work, is I started looking back and realizing that this relationship that had the bad breakup wasn't the first time the same thing had happened. The same way I'd been. It happened at least 2 or 3 times before that. And so her clarity of message, telling me why I screwed up, was a gift that really propelled me into really discovering what I was missing. And to put it in simple terms, I had up to that point looked at being a man as a choice of 1 or 2 values: to be the nice guy or to be the bad boy. Or as I put it, the open-hearted man, or to be the macho man. That was kind of the 2 choices. And I didn't see it another choice. Grew up in England from a very reserved, stoic Jewish family. My dad was really the closed-hearted, emotionally suppressed. That's a nice way of putting it. Tight-lipped, kind of the English tradition for men. Wasn't very emotional. I didn't want to be like that. And I got closer to my mother, who was more emotional, more heart-centered, more loving. And so I became the nice guy, which didn't help my love life because women wanted the strong man. But I knew if I was being like my dad, I wouldn't be what I wanted to be. And so I had this dichotomy. And in 2007, to fast forward, after that feedback I received, I discovered there was a third choice, because there was the nice guy and there was the bad boy. The third choice is what I would describe as true masculinity. Why I use masculinity in my branding and my marketing, because when I discovered I was a masculine, or I should say, when I remembered myself as a masculine man, which is an open heart with a strong clarity and direction in life.
Right.
Everything for me. And that's where I started doing this work, because I knew that by owning this space for myself, I could teach other people the same thing.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So many good things out of that. The first thing I want to acknowledge is your openness to see your awareness, to see this as a gift and as an opportunity to see, okay, what can I learn from this? Even though it wasn't even presented in an appealing way, you were able to put yourself, your ego on the side and said, okay, what can I learn from this? And that's
Well,
so important. Okay, there is
well,
a
just saying,
transition time.
it wasn't immediate.
Okay, okay.
It took me a few months of distress, frustration, upset, judgment, blame, all that other stuff
Okay,
in the way. And
okay,
when I finally got to the point, it was about 3 months later, I went, hang on a second. What am I complaining about? It's not about her, it's about me. And that's when it shifted. So yes, I did do it, but it wasn't like this. I was so advanced. I went, oh, now I get the lesson. Let me learn from it. No, it took a few months.
okay, okay. Took your time. That reminds me of, you know, the monk, the Buddhist monk, Pema Chodron.
Mhm.
And how she started, how she became a monk, her aha moment was she was at her house and her husband, her then husband, came to see her and told her that he had cheated on her.
Mhm.
And she grabbed the rock and threw the rock to him. So, you know, even enlightened people, even very peaceful people can have the wrong reaction. Those situations really trigger us. Relationships. I believe that's why they are so complicated, because they bring us the most joy, the most fulfillment, the deepest devotion and connection and happiness. And we are high, high, high as a kite. But they can also, it's the whole spectrum. When we sign up to love, we signed up to love, to hate. And that's the tricky part, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, to underscore that, the challenge relationships are is that we think that when we get into a relationship, we're going to be fine and it's going to be okay, and we've finally arrived where we want to be and we can be happy, like you were saying.
Right.
But the thing is, when we're on
Oh,
our
you
own,
arrived.
yeah, exactly. But when we're on our own, it's easier to avoid stuff. Even
Right.
though that's when I work with my clients, mostly when they're single. But the truth is, when we're alone, we can slide through certain things. We can have habits we don't worry about. But when we meet somebody else, they tend to hold up the mirror to us and
Yeah.
start to see ourselves where we haven't necessarily cleaned up our act. So yes, relationships can be extremely challenging. One of my favorite teachers, Lisa Nichols, I just saw her yesterday, talks about how oftentimes relationships are like gifts wrapped in sandpaper. So there's a great gift there, but at the same time, there is a friction. There is going to be a roughening and a smoothing of the surfaces. So we start to work on our own stuff, which is one of the gifts of being in a relationship. So yes,
Right.
relationships are not for the faint of heart.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And how we fail to see that. And I believe now, you know, in these modern times, we spend so much time on social media, on the phone, and looking at perfectly curated Instagram posts and all that. And it's so easy to get triggered, you know, to go and see all these happy couples looking perfect, and then you go to your life and your husband is being an asshole, and you're like, I want out, you know, I didn't
Right.
up for this. But so it's easy. Culture has been feeding us the Disney movie, the, you know, the
Yeah.
happy ending. And it is a happy ending. I do believe in that. It's mostly happiness, but it's also our own ability to see our beloved as our biggest teacher, to become
Well,
ourselves.
the thing with this, and you're actually speaking the truth on this, the challenge is that we are presented with an image that isn't real, that is curated, as you said. It is a perfectly adorned image that when you meet the person in real life, you're going, that's the same person.
Right.
So the challenge with dating apps, and being a man, and then single, I do use the dating apps to look at people's profiles, to look at women's profiles. I don't see the men, obviously, but when I see women's profiles, I do notice where some of the pictures are just natural and real, and
Yeah.
some are artificial and filtered and tinted and changed. But at least the thing is that with a dating profile, you can put up real pictures that show you as you really are, ideally so the person who's looking can see you. Because that's the thing is, if they want to be in real life, ideally you want to look the same thing in the dating app as you do in real life. So when they find you, they go, oh, you're there. That's the real person. Because
Right.
the disappointment, and this is the thing, if you put up on a dating app or on social media an image of yourself so tweaked to perfection
Yeah.
that when you walk down the street, somebody won't even recognize you because they don't see you as the real you. You're missing out on real life.
Yeah.
And you suddenly miss out on romance.
Yes, it's so true. It's so true. It's unbelievable the advances of technology. Now we have in our hands what when I was growing up, only actors and models had that, the Photoshop, and now I mean I use filters on my social media, and yeah, it's something that. So how do we? That's hard though. That's very hard because or challenging because how do you compete? I know men are very visual.
Yes.
So if they are on Bumble, let's say, well, or anywhere on a dating app, match, let's say, let's not do Bumble because the women is the one that selects, but match, and he has, he's a busy man. He's not a man that is into the dating scene, so he's not a player. He doesn't have experience with all these. He probably doesn't even have an Instagram, or you know and he goes to match to find the love of his life, and he cannot distinguish between what is a real picture and what is an enhanced picture. So I can see how it can be hard for women to post untouched pictures when they know they are competing in an app that favors only that aspect. Because let's be honest, men sometimes don't even read the profiles, they go by the picture.
True.
So have you thought about that? What is the mindset switch, or any tips that you can give?
Well, the thing is, dating apps definitely are designed for men. I mean, Bumble accepted because Bumble is definitely designed for more for women, but all the apps, because they have pictures in them,
Right.
most, maybe one or two don't, but almost all the apps have pictures in them, and men are generally visually stimulated. That's the way we're wired. That's the programming. Women generally, though, are more feeling or kinesthetically stimulated. So the challenge for women in the dating apps, just to go that side for a second, is they have to feel the qualities in a man in his pictures and what he writes about, whereas men are just looking at the pictures, generally speaking. Not always, but generally speaking.
Yeah.
So there is a definite requirement to present in those avenues to be seen or to be felt. So for men looking at the pictures, what's going to draw their attention is what stands out. And it may not be the adjusted photograph, it might be the real one. The number of dating apps, the number of pictures seen on dating apps, and just to be transparent, I've been on the dating apps, so I'm single. The number of pictures I see of women where they are standing on a mountaintop, like way in the distance, like they've achieved something. That tells me very little about who you are. It tells me what you've done. Great, you've been mountaineering, but I don't see you. And if all the pictures don't have a picture that's a like headshot or a full body shot close up, I don't know who that person is. So it's not easy to be attracted to that person, even though their bio might be really good, because the pictures are a turn off. But the thing is, the adjustment people make to their pictures, as I said before, they're a failing because they don't match real life. So any women out there who are listening to this who feel like they're getting frustrated with this, use real pictures. Don't adjust. Yes, you want to put makeup on, that's fine, of course. Do your hair and everything else, but do it real. So when people meet you, it's real. It matches.
Right.
Because the truth is, if you're looking for a man who's going to be your partner, if he's caught up and being attracted to the perfection of these artificial images, he's not going to be happy with you anyway.
Right.
So don't worry about him. Focus on what you want to attract. Be real in your pictures.
So true. So true. I attest of that. I was married. Well, I am married now. I'm happily married now for many years. But before that, I was married to another man, and that's what he wanted from me. He wanted the perfection. He had a perfect, clear idea of how I had to look, and he even picked my clothing to the point that my wardrobe was totally catering to him and the way I looked, everything. And he ended up cheating on me. He was looking for something that wasn't real. He was looking for arm candy,
And the challenge with that is, if you look for that, it's transitory, because people, unfortunately, sorry, let's break the news to everybody listening, is we change as we get older.
I know.
It's part of life, So, and it's funny, one of my podcasts, as you said, I do have 2 podcasts. One of the podcasts we recorded last week, so probably it may be airing by the time this episode airs. We talked about how important are looks in a relationship, and we had a great deep discussion about this, because the thing is, what really attracts us ultimately has to be something that we can keep looking at and enjoying over the years.
Yes.
So for women, you have a certain advantage because you tend to connect to the qualities in a man that usually stay the same. They're pretty consistent. His looks may change, but his qualities, his integrity, those things will be ideally the same.
Yes.
But for women, if a man really does really care for you, it's about what's behind the eyes, because yes, your eyes may be sparkling, but it's a sparkle in your eyes that stays the same, even if your eyes change, if your skin changes, if your face changes.
Right.
So if that's what really attracts him, then you stay connected. It's this sense about falling in love with who you are, not what you look like.
Absolutely.
Yes, what you look like is the decoration,
Right.
but who you are is much more than that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And at the end of the day, I believe that that's all that matters. You know, it's who we are. And once you fall in love with that, they are beautiful. You know, it's like the mother with the baby, that the baby is so ugly, but they cannot, it's the most beautiful baby in the world, because it's
Hey, careful how you say that. Some women might get upset with you about that.
but it's the truth. I mean, truth. And what is ugly and what is pretty, that's in the eye of the beholder. So, you know, whoever gets upset with that is, you know, it's
Well, that's the challenge also, is we've been sold a look that isn't real and is artificial. It's going to get worse with AI as it gets more and more advanced, with making these people look like they're some superhero when they're not really that good looking. Is that we start to lose track of who real people are.
Right.
So we want to stay connected to that reality, because when we look in the mirrors ourselves, we don't see the filters, we see ourselves.
Right.
So ideally, you want to find somebody who matches you on that level.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And looks change. It's you know, over the years, what is the concept of beauty changes according to the years. So anyway, so how come you are single? That's the question of the $1 million, huh?
Yeah, no. Well, as I mentioned earlier, that I've around 2007, I started really getting clear understanding what masculine energy was about, and really what feminine energy was about. So I in the first exposure to that work, there was a wonderful process at the end of the weekend where men have been doing masculine practices and women have been doing feminine practices. When we came together for the final break, and we stood across the room from each other, there were like 50 of each. The energy of the femininity beaming at me from the side of the women was such an overwhelming experience of awe and deep reverence for myself. I knew my life was be dedicated to supporting and serving that energy for the rest of my life. Part of that was, and I learned during that week, and also one of my seminal books that I read by David Data called The Way of the Superior Man.
I love that book.
It's about how a man's purpose comes before his relationship. And up to that point, and I had several careers before this, none of them were my purpose. When I finished that workshop and started doing a few more that year, 2007 was a big year for me. It became clear that my work was dedicated to teaching this to other people. My purpose was to serve and awaken and inspire first women, now men as well, to really own their true qualities, to have healthy relationships. And what I've discovered, and this is things that when he said that a man's purpose comes before his relationship, ultimately, a man's purpose is fulfillment. So relationship becomes a bonus, not a requirement. And so I've been, and also because I'm very spiritually connected, I've been on a spiritual path for 40 years, being a spiritual coach and teacher on that level, my relationship with spirit comes before both of those. So for me, it's relationship to spirit, then it's relationship to my purpose in life, what that calling is, and then relationship, because then the relationship doesn't have to carry the weight of the other two. And so for me, there's space for a relationship, but not a requirement for one.
Right. Yes. Well, that's a great space to be. And when it shows up, for how long have you been single now?
Since that event, since 2007.
Oh,
2007
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In my journey, this has been the work I've been doing. And initially, after I did those seminars, I was still on the thing, well, I need to be in a relationship. I need to be in a relationship.
Right.
I had a few dates, but nothing was happening. And what I got clear about was those were not helping me. They were distracting me from my work.
Okay.
And now I've been on this work for a long time. I'm also clear, and this is the challenge, to be transparent, is I know enough now that when I meet somebody on the dating apps or in life who hasn't done their own work, whatever
Right.
that work is, I can see that they're probably better off as being my client than being my partner, because I cannot coach my partner. So I
That's
need
very,
somebody from
very
that.
interesting. Can we tap into that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
love that. So how how do a man know if the woman is ready for love, if it's in a good place, if she has done the work in a way or not? We
Well,
talked
I'm
about the looks. Now let's talk about the inner world.
well, I speak for myself because I know what other men are looking for, but for myself, in the sense that when a woman is, first of all, she is aware of herself. One of the, you said earlier on, and I'll echo this, the first step is always awareness, to be aware of what's going on. And when I've been around people in general, let me generalize this for safety, so don't just say women, it's both men and women. When they're not aware of what's triggering them, what's upsetting them, what's knocking, what's upsetting, what's disturbing their peace, that's an issue of not being aware. Because the first step is awareness. The second piece of that is then what do you do with that? How do you relate to that? How do you respond to that? And I have, and this is one of the most simplest things, that it's just one of the things that triggers me. And it's one of the things that not triggers me now, but did trigger me. Now it's just like, oh yeah, I get that now. When people don't speak in ownership language,
Yeah.
instead of saying, you know, when I feel this way, this is what I feel like, this is what's going on. They say, well, when you do this and when you do that and you feel that way, it's like, how do you know how I feel?
Right.
So those sort of simple cues are very telling of somebody's self-awareness and self-governance. So for that, that's part of it. The other part is, and I feel like more and more what's happening is because I've been counseling, coaching, guiding for years, my match is going to be somebody who does something similar. They won't be somebody who's working in a corporation 9 to 5, most likely. There'll be somebody who has their own life, their own vocation, their own calling that makes a difference, because I like to be with somebody that our relationships are additive to each other.
Right. Right. That's yes, that's something. I'm just thinking that I may have the perfect match for you.
Hang on, we were having a conversation about relationships. You're matching me up already?
Well, we can't help it. I have always been like this. Like, the matchmaker trying to make people fall in love. It's something that my whole life. And I always gave good luck. It's unbelievable. It's like I have a superpower that people really leave me in an enhanced way. So
Nice gift.
be aware of my powers.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna talk to her and see what she thinks if she wants to meet you. But anyway, so
Yes.
how do you do your work? You do it online or do you have a live practice? You're in California, aren't you?
I'm in Los Angeles, yes. Basically, most of my work is done virtually because most of my clients are not local.
Yeah.
I have had a couple of clients who are local and we would meet up in person. That was different because there's something interesting about being physically present to doing through Zoom, you know.
Right. It's
But
very
most of my
good.
clients, in fact, all my clients for the last few years have been virtual because I've had clients all over the world. And the joy of that is that it's still connected because there's something really beautiful about seeing somebody face to face over the camera. That's not as bad as just being on the phone.
Right.
And when I coach clients, I'm moving more to do group coaching because I'm realizing my time can be used more usefully if I can impact 10 people at a time versus one person at a time.
Right.
So yeah, so working that way.
Great. And what have you seen on all these years of experience that is the biggest challenge that women have when it comes to dating and love and relationship? I know there may be a few, but if you can
Yeah,
tell,
there are a few come
yeah,
to mind.
yeah, but
The
the one,
biggest one, which is actually true for both genders, is that most people don't actually look at what their wounds are. They don't
Mm,
heal. They have this feeling that it'll be fine, I'll just ignore it, it'll be numb, and I'll go into a new relationship, or they think that the new partner will help them heal it. Neither
yeah,
one of which is likely to happen. There's a quote that's said many times, like, time heals all wounds.
yeah,
But the truth is, time may heal all physical wounds, but time just numbs emotional wounds. And
right,
so for me, well, especially my clients, most of the work I'm doing with my clients is helping them become more whole themselves, to become aware of themselves, and to really, really frankly, fall in love with themselves. because most of us aren't doing that. Most people haven't taken the time when they're single or even in the relationship to find love for themselves. They keep finding for the other person. So really, that's the biggest block I would suggest people carry, is they're looking for love out there rather than looking for love inside first, and doing the work to find the love inside.
Right. Right. Yes. Yes. We usually build some coping mechanisms or defense, and some of them are good. Some of them are healthy, but most of them, when it comes to relationship, aren't. So yes, that's. And how will somebody know if they're still carrying the past with them? Like,
The easiest way, which is what I talked about when I went through, is discovering that it doesn't matter which relationship you're in, the same things show up, the same patterns show up, the same arguments, the same upsets, the same feeling of loss, whatever those things are. I talked about this it's in my book and in my work as well. I referenced Bruce Lipton, who wrote a book called The Biology of Belief. And the teaching basically is the premise that when we're born, we don't come in with knowledge. We come in like a clean slate. And so we learn like a sponge, taking the whole world around us as we grow from the first few years of life. And the primary example of the teachers are the adults around us, our parents usually. So we watch that relationship, totally unaware that we're doing it, going, that's how love is expressed, therefore we need to lock that in, copy that, and put it into our system. So we store the memories or the perceptions of that in our unconscious mind.
right.
And then we, around 6, 7, 8 years old, become consciously aware. So we then have like a gatekeeper deciding what we want to believe. And we say, well, that's not true, that is true. But before that, all the stuff that went inside into that warehouse behind in our unconscious mind is still going.
Right.
As an adult, we go into a relationship and the unconscious programming comes into play. We tend to attract partners that remind us of our parents in some way, shape, or form. Good, bad, or indifferent. Now, if your parents' relationship was wonderful, you're lucky. Then you'll tend to draw partners that match that, mirror that, the way they loved each other. But if you had a parent who was a workaholic or was never around or abandoned or cheated, you might find partners that mirror that back to you. So it's important, as I said before, to do the inner work to find and navigate yourself. But really, the relationship itself comes first, and that then leads you to a healthy relationship with somebody else. But it is the indication of the patterns. You look back and you look at your past few relationships, even back to when you were a teenager, and go, what's the common thread? What's the most common denominator of all these relationships that I may have ignored or missed? And that'll get you started.
Right. Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you. And I know you have a gift for our viewers. Would you mind to share what the gift is?
I do. Remember what it was now. Oops. If I remember the gift, it was a self-love practice, if I remember correctly. I remember because I had sent it to you a while ago, and it's been a while since we originally spoke.
Yes,
so
yes. But I tried to look for, remember, I couldn't look.
Yes. Sorry. So in full transparency, as I already mentioned to Natalia, my website's in massive rebuilding right now. So some of the links are broken. So it'll be fixed by the time you get this.
Yeah.
But it's a self-love practice, which basically is a simple, self-guided, step-by-step reconnection to yourself.
Oh, that's
because most people don't do this. And it's like, it sounds simple, but if you just did it for 30 days, you would be amazed how much your life will change. So that's my gift.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So the link is going to be below this video, so go and grab it. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been such a pleasure. You are so like a delightful person. I really like it. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.